They carved 3 words beneath my name that cut deeper than any knife. Dad by default. It was inked in a thinner, spiteful hand under the calligraphed Jonah Mercer on a thick ivory place card. The kind you see at political fundraisers and garden parties where the flowers cost more than my truck. I stared at that phrase until it pulsed. Dad by default. 19 years of diapers at 3 a.m., of double shifts and cold dinners, and little knees bleeding on playground gravel. 19 years of night school, side jobs, and rent paid exactly on time. And to these people, I was a technicality that showed up in work boots. The ballroom stretched out around me like a movie set. Crystal chandeliers, Hudson River glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows, waiters moving like choreography, with trays balanced on fingertips. We were upstate, 20 minutes outside of Tarrytown, at an estate venue where even the hedges felt insured. Polished men in narrow suits and women with manicured calm filled the long family table. I felt every sideways glance. A woman on the groom's side, all pearls and posture, leaned toward her husband and whispered behind her fingertips. He smirked without looking at me. A guy in a tech vest, hair sprayed into compliance, eyed my shoes like they were a crime. 2 seats down, a younger man didn't bother to whisper. Guess they really had to include maintenance, he muttered, and gave a little snort, confident the janitor wouldn't hear. I heard. I slid the place card back exactly where it had been, pushed my chair from the leaned table, and stood up slow. No scene. No throat-clearing monologue. I looked over the crowded room to find my daughter. Ava stood beneath a halo of white blooms, barefoot already, heels dangling from 2 fingers. In her silk dress, she looked like the first snow that falls without wind. Quiet, complete. She stood beside a small circle of Averys, her new in-laws, smiles startlingly white, hands wrapped around flutes of something French and cold. When she laughed, the groom's mother covered her own mouth with a delighted little "oh," as if witnessing a performance staged just for her. I decided I wouldn't say goodbye. I turned toward the back of the room, where the exit hid behind a wall of vines, and took 1 step. The music cut out like a cable yanked from the wall. Ava's voice came over the speakers, clear and level. I'm done. It was so quiet you could hear glass settle. The DJ's fingers froze over his laptop as if sound might retaliate. The groom, Colton, blinked like someone had snapped a rubber band at his temple. Ava let her shoes clatter to the floor, laced her fingers through his, then dropped his hand like it burned. We're leaving, she said to no one and everyone. She walked straight at me. The crowd made a path without knowing why. She took my arm the way she used to when she was 10 and wanted to cross a busy street. Sure of her grip, sure I'd follow. Let's go, she said. Ava, what? I started. In the car, she said. And when your child says a thing like that in a voice like that, you move. We walked through the corridor of stunned faces, past the sweethearts table with its tower of rented vows, past the floral arch, past a shocked event planner whose clipboard drooped in disbelief. No one tried to stop us. Maybe it was the way Ava didn't look left or right. Maybe it was the way my jaw was set. We hit the night air and the smell of the river, and then we were in her car, a sensible sedan that purred instead of announcing. The wedding playlist started to loop on the speakers, something triumphant about forever, and I reached out and switched it off. Hudson moonlight cut the windshield into squares. We drove in silence for 40 minutes, south toward the bridge, city glow gathering like a bruise on the horizon. Her makeup stayed perfect. Her knuckles went white on the wheel. At last she spoke, eyes still forward. I saw that card last night at the rehearsal dinner. It was already on the table. And you still let them dress you up and pin flowers to you? I asked. I hated the rasp in my throat. I had to be sure, she said. I needed to see if they were willing to put it in ink in front of me. We crossed the bridge. The river beneath was black and honest. She took the exit for Newark without using the nav. She'd always known the way home by muscle memory. My house is a 1-story with a chain-link fence that keeps nothing out and everything familiar in. Paint's faded, gutters need love, but the mortgage is paid. I unlocked the door and the hinge side. Ava dropped her shoes by the mat and headed for the kitchen like she'd never moved out. She pulled 2 beers from the fridge, passed me one, then sat across from me at the chipped table with the sunflower burn mark from the time she'd set a hot panini pressed down without a coaster in 9th grade. I needed proof, she said, tapping her phone awake. And by the time I had it, I needed timing. She slid the phone across the table and hit play. The video quality was clean, the kind you get when you record with intent. Colton's father, Sterling Avery, the family name on all the shipping crates, stood at the bar with his tie loosened and the kind of smile you get from money that's never had to explain itself. "Come on," he was saying, voice thick with scotch and entitlement. "The guy's a glorified custodian." I pulled the address. "You should see his block on Street View. It's almost quaint." A laugh off camera. The groom's mother's voice, pity wrapped in sugar. "Don't be cruel, Sterling. He's a janitor. That's his actual title. Let's be precise." Another round of laughter. The camera panned, and there was Colton himself, chin tucked to hide his grin, nodding like he'd been waiting for his line. "Just wait until she sees who could have walked her down the aisle," he said softly, conspiratorially. "Her real father, not the guy with a plunger." The video ended. The room didn't. I looked at my hands on the table, at the oil lines still ghosting the creases from a lifetime of work that doesn't wash off with one shower and gratitude. I thought about Ava's mother, who had put a suitcase in the trunk of a borrowed car when Ava was 5 months old and driven away because it turned out motherhood wasn't for her in the same way bungee jumping isn't for me. "They knew," I said finally. "They all knew he was gone. And they smiled at me anyway." Ava set the phone down like a judge sets a gavel. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "Why let me walk into that room alone?" "Because this wasn't about hurting me privately," she said. "It was about exposing who they were publicly. I wanted to see if they'd show themselves." They did. "So you married him just to pull the pin?" The words were out before I could wrestle them back. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a manila envelope. She slid it across the table and watched me open it. My name filled out in the emergency contact fields. Legal letters with timestamps and digital seals. Notes from a law firm I recognized, because their commercials come on during Mets games. "I didn't marry him," she said. "I never signed the prenup they shoved into my inbox at midnight on a Friday like a surprise test. My counsel sent a counter. They ignored it. I left it sitting there like a trap that says do not step. No signature, no wedding." "You had a lawyer?" I turned a page and saw language about contingent interests and asset shields and other concepts I only understand by feel. "Protect, protect, protect. I've had counsel since February," she said. "Family counsel. Quiet. Nobody on their side knew. Nobody on ours had to." "How long?" "Since I started building something worth stealing," she said. No arrogance. Just the simple math of it. She took her phone back, tapped, and then held it up with the screen bright. A clean website. A name at the top, Vigilant Bio. A tagline, Early Signals. Earlier Interventions. A photo of her, lab coat, hair pulled back, smile she saves for things that matter. "You're," I started. "Co-founder," she said. "We closed our Series C in May. 9-figure valuation. If I'm lucky, I'll get to convert the luck to impact." I blinked. She had used to build robots out of toaster parts and tube socks. She'd scavenged broken VCRs and gut them at the kitchen table with a screwdriver and a determination that paid no mind to the hour. Somewhere between then and now she'd become the person venture capitalists take to lunch. You think you're paying attention, and then your child drops the curtain and the stage is bigger than the room you thought you were standing in. "They thought they were marrying up," I said, and the sound my voice made when pride elbowed rage surprised me. She nodded. "I let them believe the story they liked. That always makes the reveal cleaner." She reached into her bag again, and this time lifted out a heavier folder, black leather, edges burnished from use. She unsnapped it and turned it toward me. Stock certificates, wire receipts, purchase agreements stapled to carefully anonymized holding entities, Blue Harbor Trust, Aeroline Capital, Eastlawn North Holdings. I traced the language with my finger like a man learning to read late in life. "What is this?" I asked. "My quiet," she said. "I've been buying pieces of Avery Medical Logistics since last summer." "You bought their stock?" "I acquired control," she said. "As of last week, my entities collectively hold 41% of voting shares, with 3 minority holders poised to transfer proxies. They're tired of watching the family use the company like a debit card." I felt the room tilt. 41. She tapped a spreadsheet. It wasn't hard. They've been sloppy for years. I used dividend payouts from Vigilant and the small inheritance Grandma Anna left me when she passed. "Remember when I asked you to co-sign on a trust account at the credit union 2 summers ago? I thought you were saving for a down payment," I said weakly. "I was," she said. "On a lever. Her hands moved with the tenderness of someone assembling a bomb designed to save lives. She fanned documents across the table, a vendor list with red boxes around Northgate Supply whose registered agent was the groom's uncle. Invoices padded by 15% for expedited sterilization sleeves. No one could find an inventory. A compliance attestation for an FDA inspection that matched a template I found online, right down to a stray double space in paragraph 4. She slid an email thread toward me. Names blacked out just enough to be legal. Content screaming anyway. We can fix this in Q2, and auditors never dig that deep. They're not just rude, she said. They're lazy with power. And that, Dad, that's the kind of thing you don't ignore. I looked at the stack of paper and then at her, at the jaw I knew from 100 stubborn bedtimes and 1,000 victorious mornings. What do you need me for? I asked. You've built a guillotine. You don't need someone to sharpen the blade. She pulled out one more page, simple, printed in the calm font lawyers use when they intend to move the world an inch to the left. Proxy authorization. My name in bold. Her signature line untouched. I'm transferring my voting authority to you, she said. I stared. Why? Optics. I'm the jilted X in their narrative. Easy to paint as bitter. They installed a place card that called you Dad by default. Let's see how they like Chairman by design. If you hold the vote in the room, they can't recast me as emotional, only organized. You want me to chair their meeting? I said. She smiled. Not kindly. Not cruelly. Precisely. I want you to sit at the head of the table where men like Sterling have never imagined you sitting. And I want you to say, in the voice you used when the landlord tried to keep our heat deposit, that the games are over. I could feel the old stubbornness in me rise like a tide. The same current that made me scrub a mall bathroom at 2 a.m. without complaint because the rent didn't care if I was tired. The same current that made me pry a spark plug out of a cramped engine well with a pair of pliers because the guy couldn't get to work without it and his kid was late for daycare. I picked up the pen. I signed my name like it belonged on that line. Meeting's Thursday, she said, snapping the folder shut. 9 a.m. Try on a suit before then. I won't let you walk in there looking like a man they can write jokes on. I don't own a suit, I said. You will, she said, and disappeared down the hall into the old spare room like it was still hers, because maybe it always had been. I sat in the kitchen alone a long time after that, the cheap ceiling fan moving warm air around, the refrigerator humming like an old friend. Ava had come home not to be comforted, but to coordinate. She hadn't brought tears. She had brought leverage. On Thursday morning, she tossed a garment bag on the table and unzipped it with the satisfaction of a magician revealing a human who hadn't been sawed in half after all. Charcoal wool. Subtle check. The jacket hung right like it belonged to someone who didn't apologize when he entered a room. When did you? I started. Last night, she said. Alterations at 3 a.m. Large coffee, 2 very patient tailors, and a bribe. I put the thing on and felt my shoulders settle into a version of me I hadn't met yet. The shoes were black, quiet, and expensive. I laced them with fingertips that had tied knots in rope and cords of lights, and 100 loose ends for nearly 2 decades. In the mirror above the keys by the door, a man looked back who could ask a direct question without waiting for permission. The boardroom at Avery Medical Logistics looked like it had been ordered out of a catalog for people who name rooms. 12 chairs around a table the color of wealth, glass walls with a view of Stamford Harbor, water in glass pitchers so clear it looked theoretical. We arrived at 9:04 a.m. for minutes after the meeting began, and Ava didn't slow down at the frosted door. Sterling stood up fast enough to wobble. This is a closed session, he said, voice dropping into a register meant to frighten employees and servers. You don't belong here. Read your bylaws, Ava said. Executives and their designated proxies are entitled to enter and to be heard. What executive? He sneered. Ava set a paper on the table with a stamp from the state, so crisp it seemed to hum. Me. As of Monday. And this is my proxy. She turned her chin toward me the way she used to when introducing me to teachers she liked. Mr. Mercer will be voting my shares. A silver-haired woman at the far end. Blazer. No nonsense. Eyes like a hawk that had done its reading. Cleared her throat. It's valid, Sterling. I saw it come through the corporate secretary's office. The transfer meets the notice and sufficiency requirements. He sagged back into his chair like a power outage. You think you can just walk in here and... I don't think, Ava said. I've counted. She handed out packets. No flourishes. No speeches. Vendor fraud traced to a brother with a different last name. Inventory losses massaged down in internal memos, then rewritten in public filings. A compliance report with an audit stamp that led to a P.O. box behind a strip mall and a phone number that forwarded to nowhere. Sterling's son, Colton, sat 3 seats down, face blank as printer paper, jaw clenched so tight the muscle above his ear jumped. He had not once looked at me. I didn't need him to. I stood when Ava finished distributing the evidence and set my palms flat on the polished wood like a man leaning over a patient, listening for a pulse. Call the vote, I said. Emergency motion. Removal for cause. The hawk-eyed woman, Marla Quinn, I would learn her name and trust it, nodded. Motion to remove Sterling Avery, Walter Avery, and Colton Avery from all executive responsibilities, effective immediately, pending full independent audit and cooperation with regulatory inquiries. I second, I said. Marla's gaze calmed as she counted raised hands. Ava had done the math. 2 minority shareholders, Joseph Ng and Kimberly Rios, lifted their hands without hesitation. Marla raised hers. So did I, holding Ava's proxies. The air changed. You can feel real power shifts. They have a weight you can measure in your ribs. Motion carries, Marla said, voice even. 8 in favor, 4 opposed. Vacancies are declared. Next item, appointment of an interim chair. Nominate Mr. Mercer, Ava said, and her voice did something in the room I will not forget. It made the men who had laughed at me inhale. I didn't want to smile. I didn't want to look hungry. I stood. The suit did its work. I accept, I said simply. The vote moved like water downhill. Hands rose. Marla gave a tiny satisfied nod. Congratulations, Chair Mercer, she said. Sterling pushed his chair back, so hard it bit the rug. You people have no idea what you've done, he said, and stalked out in a rage that had expected to be obeyed. His brother trailed, whispering. Colton sat a beat longer, stared at the table, then stood without looking at his mother. He left slower. I do not know if he cried in the elevator. I do not care. We exited through the same door we'd entered. No victory lap. No flutes. In the lobby, Ava exhaled like a diver breaking through the surface, then smiled at me with her face open and young for just a second. Nice suit, she said. Better posture. I'll never get used to the shoes, I said. You'll learn, she said. You learned everything else. In the parking lot, sunlight bounced off 100 windshields. The engine of Ava's sensible car purred. We didn't talk for the first mile. Then she said, You okay? Trying to make room for it, I said. That's all. I pictured myself in a narrow storage closet in the old mall. Back when I was the guy who sprayed puke off tile at 2 in the morning after a school field trip went rogue. I had been that man for long enough that the glue of it had cured in me. Now I had signed a paper that made a room full of people look at me the way I used to look at Foreman. It didn't sit wrong. It just sat new. You handled it, Ava said. You always do. At home, we hung the suit jacket on the back of a chair because I didn't own anything made of cedar to do it justice. Ava poured lemonade into 2 glasses and slid a slim envelope across the table with the other hand, a motion so practiced I almost missed it. What now? I asked. This transfers Avery into a public benefit structure, she said. Majority stake held in trust with healthcare access covenants. It locks out private siphons. We're going to run it like it was supposed to be run, profit and service, in that order, accountable. Are you sure? I asked. Even though it was a silly question to ask a person who treats certainty like a tool she only lifts when it's needed. Yes, she said. This wasn't revenge, Dad. That was a side effect. This is reconstruction. We signed. No fanfare. A bored notary witnessed us over Zoom from a kitchen table with a toddler crawling in and out of frame. When the digital seals bloomed across the screen, I felt something in my chest unclench that I hadn't known was clenched. A week later, a strange quiet knock came at 11 p.m. Not neighbor, not cop. I opened the door and found Colton Avery on my porch, hair a mess, tie depressed, eyes red where pride had rubbed them raw. Mr. Mercer, he said. 5 minutes. Behind me, the house smelled like lemon cleaner and old upholstery. I leaned my shoulder into the door frame. You called me a prop, I said. Now you're at my house asking for an audience. He flinched. I was drunk, he said. You were honest, I corrected. That was the problem. Ava's footsteps sounded in the hall. It's okay, she said. She slipped past me and stood on the porch without touching him. Hoodie, leggings, hair in a grip. No makeup, no ceremonies left. He tried to hand her a crumpled letter. I wrote. I don't need an apology, she said. I need distance. He swallowed. My father is blaming me for all of it. Says I should have stopped you. Your father is blaming you because shame needs a mule, she said. I don't work for him anymore. He looked past her into my hallway like the future might be hiding behind the umbrella stand. Can I just? No, she said, and handed him an envelope of her own. Cease and desist. Personal contact, professional interference, attempts to influence governance. Read it. Obey it. I don't want pity to make me sloppy. He took the paper like it was warm. I thought we had something real, he said. It came out almost gentle. So did I, she said. Then I realized the only thing you were really in love with was being rescued. He nodded once, like a man receiving a verdict he suspected was coming the whole time. He backed down the steps and walked to the impossible car he couldn't afford without the family business. He drove away without turning on his headlights until the corner. He would either learn or he would drift. Either way, it wasn't our job. On a hot Saturday, under a pop-up tent in Wequahic Park, 3 blocks from the duplex where I once learned to make $30 last 7 days, Ava and I stood in front of 2 folding tables piled with refurbished blood pressure cuffs, glucose monitors, and tablets loaded with plain language health guides. The banner behind us read Mercer Access Fund in letters big enough for the kids shooting hoops on the cracked court to read between layups. Money from Avery's first quarter under the trust had come in and gone right back out to where it could do something besides sit. A closed loop I'd never seen in my life. Ava spoke first. She treated the mic like a conversation, not a performance. This isn't charity, she said. It's a correction. You deserve this all along. The old women from the assisted living home nodded like they had been waiting for someone to say that in public. When she called my name, the sound inside my chest did something I wasn't prepared for. I stepped up. The mic felt small. My voice felt enormous. I don't know much about market caps, I said. I know the cost of a gallon of milk and a kid with a fever at 2 a.m. I know what it feels like to open a bill and count your breaths. A few people laughed, not unkindly. I know how to show up when I said I would. Turns out that translates. After, 3 teenagers approached. One, a girl in a sweatshirt that said future engineer, looked at me like an experiment that had produced a surprising result. I've never seen somebody like you running a meeting with people in suits, she said. I wanted to say something profound. I said, you will, because that was the right truth. Another kid took our picture on a phone held together with tape and hope. The local news came, spelled my name wrong, got the story right enough. When the folding chairs were stacked and the volunteers drove off and the park took back its ordinary noises, Ava handed me a small white envelope. Inside was a key and a deed with both our names on it. What's this? I asked. A house on a corner lot with light in the afternoons, she said. Not a payback. An upgrade. Are we moving? I asked, stupid with gratitude. We don't have to, she said. It's there if and when. We sat on a bench and watched the sun get tired of its job, and I realized we were sitting in the first quiet that didn't feel like a lull before a storm in a long time. It felt like a view. A year later, I sat in the front row of an auditorium at Rutgers. Coat too nice for me if you asked the boy I used to be. Shoes that felt broken in at last. Ava stood at a podium under bright lights that made glass look like water. Her talk was called Strategic Patience, winning by watching. And watching her, you could see a room figure out that the word patience isn't passive, it's physics. Someone asked who had influenced her most. My first CFO, she said without missing. He never went to college, so he taught me cash flow by showing me the fridge at the end of the month. A few heads turned. I didn't wave. I nodded, and for once in my life that was enough. I stepped out before the applause ended because I don't do well being looked at by groups. The campus valet had a line of students with dream cars for later, Toyotas with ambition, and one Tesla with a coffee-stained seat. The same valet from a year ago at the wedding, kid with a sharp fade and a sharper mouth, took one look at me and said, "Nice ride, sir," like he meant it. Maybe I was dressed different. Maybe he was different. Either way, in the town car, Ava scrolled through texts, reporters, investors, a kindergarten friend who'd seen the live stream and wrote 7 exclamation points, and Avi, because she never could say Ava right when they were 5. We rolled past a gas station where I used to feed quarters into my tank and count on fumes to carry us that last mile. Above it, a billboard in navy letters, Integrity Compounds. Mercer Access Fund. No graphic designer sprinkles. Just the words we mean. You didn't have to do all this, I said quietly, eyes on the window. You're right, she said, not looking up. I didn't. I wanted to. We hit a red light and idled. The car behind us honked, even though there was nowhere to go. I remembered once, when Ava was 8, her zipper stuck on a cheap dress for a school picture. I'd been elbow deep in a stranger's radiator in the street, fingers numb, heat haze in August thick enough to chew. I'd wiped coolant on my jeans, jogged inside, freed the zipper with a butter knife and a prayer, missed the picture anyway because the bus driver wouldn't wait. I fixed the radiator for nothing because the kid in the back seat had been crying, and a crying kid will make a man feel things he doesn't sign up for. We've been making up for that morning ever since. When we pulled into my old block, a neighbor waved. The sun made shadows I recognized. Sometimes the revenge people ask me about looks like public humiliation and ash. Mine looks like shade on a hot 13-step walk from the curb to my front door. It looks like a sign over a park table that says affordable care and means it. It sounds like a knock at 11 p.m. and the sound of your daughter's voice saying, no, without flinching. It feels like a suit you didn't think you'd ever wear fitting around a body that's been strong for so long it forgot how to be seen. Do you think you'd have forgiven him? Ava asks sometimes, meaning Colton. I tell her the truth. In some life, maybe, I say. Not in this one. In this one, we chose structure over sentiment. We didn't salt the earth. We changed the deed. We shifted a company from private pocket to public promise. We put the man they mocked at the head of a table and let him be boring in all the right ways. We sent out blood pressure cuffs and glucose monitors with instructions in words you can follow without a degree. We printed 3 sentences on a billboard, and the neighborhood recognized itself. Months after Rutgers, a plain envelope arrived from an address in Connecticut I didn't recognize. Inside, a check for $500 and a note with uncertain penmanship. Mr. Mercer, I used to approve the inflated invoices. It was wrong. I'm sorry. Consider this a small start for the fund. Anonymous. I laughed, not unkindly. We deposited it. Money that comes with apology still buys cuff batteries. You take what comes toward good. On the day I finally moved the suit from the back of the chair to a real hanger, I found the old Ivory Place card tucked beneath, forgotten. The calligraphy was pretty. The words underneath had faded from sharp black to gray. Dad by default. I kept it. Not as a wound. As proof. People will tell you what they think you are. Then one day your child will hand you the right pen and ask you to write your own title at the top of the page. I wrote chair in block letters that would make a 7th grade teacher shake her head. I wrote Dad underneath in smaller handwriting and underlined it twice. We go back to the river sometimes. Ava slips her shoes off before we get to the gravel, just like that night, and I carry them even though she could carry the world. The current talks to the rocks, relentless and calm. We stand on the bank and the wind lifts her hair the way it used to when she was 4 and ran across the playground like she was chasing light. We did okay, I say. She bumps my shoulder. We did better than okay. People ask me for lessons. I tell them I'm not a teacher. Then I tell them anyway. Watch long enough to learn the pattern. Document for the day someone needs to follow you through the dark. Don't confuse noise for heat. Don't wait for respect. Take responsibility instead. Love is work, not a sentence under a stranger's calligraphy. And when the day comes and the room goes quiet, and the mic picks up your daughter's voice saying, I'm done, stand up. It won't feel like a march. It will feel like air returning to lungs. The rest is details, envelopes, signatures, votes counted, boxes of cuffs delivered to the right tables, a new deed with both names on it. Revenge burned away on its own. Resolution stayed. It sits in the suit I never expected to wear and the old truck that still gets me where I'm going. It sits in a boardroom where the air finally belongs to everyone breathing it. It sits under a billboard in navy letters in a park with a pop-up tent, and in the quiet of a kitchen where a father and a daughter sign their names to something that will outlast the pettiness of a single bad night. If there's a moral, it's this. The people who write your label don't get to keep the pen.